We've all heard the news by now. The Fed recently cut the federal funds rate by 50 basis points. And the questions we immediately received from Summit County home buyers and home sellers included, are mortgage interest rates dropping immediately? What does this mean for me if I'm a home buyer here in Summit County? And what does it mean for me if I'm thinking of selling my Summit County property? All great questions, and stick around. That's exactly what we're going to cover in this video. Hey, it's Pete Deininger with the Breck Life Group right here in Breckenridge, and in this video I'm going to talk about how recent actions by the Fed may, and I'd like to stress may, lead to reduced mortgage interest rates. We'll talk a little bit about correlation versus causation. I'll get to that in just a second. And what does it mean for you if you're a buyer or seller of Summit County properties? So let's get into it. But first, a little background, and we're going to take this from the 10,000 foot view because I'm not an economist. I just play one on YouTube. When the Fed cuts rates, that does not cause mortgage interest rates to drop. When the Fed cuts rates, they're signaling the intention to stimulate economic activity. And this lowers the cost for banks to borrow money, which means that they can then lend money at a lower rate. This can impact the bond market and specifically the 10-year Treasury bond. As we see increasing demand for Treasury bonds, we'll see those yields decline, and typically lower yields of Treasury bonds leads to lower mortgage interest rates. So you can see that it is more a correlation or a long-term chain of events. When the Fed pulls their lever to reduce rates, eventually we see through a chain of actions lower mortgage interest rates. Okay, with all of that behind us, let's now talk about demand for mortgages as we see influences in mortgage interest rates. So I'm going to put on the screen now this graph from Keeping Current Matters, an absolutely great resource for all things real estate. And as you look at this graph, you can see the orange line shows mortgage interest rates in recent history and how as those are declining, the blue line shows the number of applications for new mortgage loans. So no surprise that as interest rates are falling, more people want to borrow money. People like to borrow money at lower interest rates. So what does this mean for you if you're a buyer? And what does this mean for you if you're thinking of selling your Summit County property? We'll cover that next. Okay, if you're thinking of buying here in Summit County, you've maybe been watching the market for a while, looking for just the right property. You've watched how appreciation has taken prices higher and higher, and the interest rates that were so high for the last couple of years have made it really challenging for many buyers. So I want you to think back to 2020 and 2021, let's call it the height or maybe the depths of the COVID pandemic, and what the real estate market was like at that time. Buyer demand was incredibly high. People wanted to be in the mountains. We had competing offers on almost every single property. Cash buyers were beating out every buyer who was a borrower because they were borrowing for a portion of their purchase. And it was competitive. It was hard, it was frustrating, and it was expensive. Oftentimes, we saw people bidding up to 10% above asking price. So my projection is as mortgage interest rates fall and as the blue line on the graph shows, more buyers return to the marketplace to purchase properties. My projection or prediction is that we're going to see more buyers returning to Summit County, which means a competitive market for you. And if you are borrowing, it may be that cash buyers are going to nudge you out of winning competitive bids. One thing I like to share is that we work with several local lenders who offer programs where you could secure your purchase of a loan today at a 30-year fixed rate, and they offer a program where if rates fall in the future, they will do a no cost refinance to you. So there are great options if we all agree that mortgage interest rates are likely to be lower 1 year from now than where they are today, that waiting and finding a situation where rates might be a half a point lower, but you have to compete and go 10% above on purchase price, that may not be as appealing as buying today and being able to negotiate a couple of points off list price and being able to refinance today's rate to a lower rate in the near future. So that's an option. Give us a call if you've got questions about or would like an introduction to any of those local lenders. And if you've been thinking about selling your Summit County property, this increased buyer demand works in your favor. It's quite likely you're going to see more competition, which could lead to competing offer scenarios and possibly offers above full list price. And even if we don't get to that point again, like we saw in 2020 and 2021, more buyers in the marketplace just mean that there are more buyers with eyeballs on your property, touring your property, and this could ultimately lead to fewer days on the market. So a reduction in mortgage interest rates is not only a benefit to buyers being able to find more appealing rates for their purchase, but to sellers, it means that there are likely to be more buyers in the marketplace looking at your property. So whether you're thinking of buying or thinking of selling a Summit County property, if you've got questions about mortgage interest rates and how it affects your particular situation, we invite you to reach out. You can give us a call, send a text message. We love to help strategize the best course forward for your particular situation. Thanks very much.